I'm back. It's topic 3, the global health policy stage. The U.S. is very involved in institutions outside the United States that are major players in the global health scene and in global health policy. Probably the best known of these is the World Health Organization. This photo shows Margaret Chan. She's the current WHO Director General. WHO is part of the United Nations, was founded in 1948. Its headquarters is in Geneva. Its constitution, originally signed by 69 nations, stated as its objective the attainment by all people of the highest possible level of health. WHO is governed by an organization called the World Health Assembly, which has 195 members, each of which has a vote in the Assembly. The United States is one of the members of the World Health Assembly, and it has one vote, like all the other countries in the Assembly. The United States also has a membership seat on WHO's Executive Board, which develops some of the agendas that are brought before the World Health Assembly and helps to steer the organization, more than that larger body. What does WHO do in the global health scene? Well, one of its most important roles is setting norms and standards for international health issues. WHO helps develop and manage international health regulations. It develops the standard statistical mechanisms for monitoring and classification of disease, the international classification of diseases. It has developed international codes of marketing for things like breast milk substitutes. It brings together countries from all over the world to try to develop new treaties and agreements with health-related implications, such as a new convention on tobacco control, a global code on the practice of international recruitment of health personnel, and others. We'll actually look at a number of examples of how the U.S. has interacted with some of these international agreements a little later. WHO also provides a lot of technical advice to countries. It has experts serving all over the world on a whole range of issues, those related to specific diseases, those related to health systems and financing, and many other aspects. In many ways, WHO is the best known player in the global health stage and has been for decades. Today, a number of new players have come onto the scene, and WHO's role and influence is changing. But the U.S. remains a major participant in the World Health Organization. In this next slide, we can see Dr. Jim Kim, who's the current president of the World Bank. Now, I know a little bit about the World Bank. I worked for them for 7 years. I helped to direct the World Bank's health programs in India for a number of years, and then I worked for several years in World Bank headquarters in Washington, D.C. And I'm often surprised at some of the things that I think are common knowledge about the World Bank, but sometimes they are not so common knowledge. First, the World Bank is a financial institution. It is, as its name says, a bank. It lends money to developing countries primarily for development purposes. It was set up, in fact, to lend money to countries for things for which they would find it difficult to secure commercial financing. The bank's goal, its official mission, is to create a world without poverty. It was founded in 1945. Dr. Kim, as the new World Bank president, has stated a more recent goal, which is to eliminate extreme poverty from the world in the coming decades. The World Bank only really got involved in global health issues seriously since the 1990s. With WHO and other international organizations, it helps to organize and direct a number of international collaborations and partnerships. One of these is called the International Health Partnership, which involves many development agencies and many countries in the developing world. It makes loans to countries to fight a wide range of health problems, including malaria, tuberculosis, HIV/AIDS. It helps to finance vaccine and immunization programs, and it helps to finance the development of healthcare systems like hospitals and clinics, training healthcare providers, and so on. The World Bank has had 12 presidents since its formation, every one of them has been from the United States. In fact, it's been said that it's kind of an informal tradition that the World Bank president should be an American. This is a tradition which may change in the near future. There's been a lot of debate about why the World Bank president should always be someone from the United States. In the last election, which Dr. Kim won, this was highly contested by several excellent candidates from other parts of the world. The U.S. sits on the World Bank's executive board, but unlike WHO, where voting is one vote, one country, voting in the World Bank is weighted by a country's subscription to the bank's capital. And the World Bank is and the United States is a very large subscriber to the World Bank's paid-in capital, and therefore has a significant share of voting power on the World Bank's executive board. There are a lot of other organizations in the global scene that matter a lot for global health, and where the U.S. is also a participant. I can't spend the time to name all of them and tell you about what all they do, but let's look at some of the major types of these organizations. Firstly, there are a wide number of other multilateral or multinational organizations. These are organizations which involve collaborations across multiple countries of the world. There are other UN organizations that are very involved in global health. UNICEF is very well known. It was originally called the United Nations Children's Fund, and it particularly focuses on the health and other development needs of women and children. The Food and Agriculture Organization focuses on food issues, but is very active in nutritional issues around the world, which are very important for health. Two other multilateral organizations have recently been formed as partnerships outside of the UN system. One is called Gavi, which originally stood for the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunizations. Today, Gavi is referred to as the Gavi Alliance. Gavi was formed to bring together both public and private organizations to try to develop much more sustainable financing for expanding immunization around the world and introducing new vaccines. Another such organization is the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, TB, and Malaria. The Global Fund is again a partnership amongst governments, international organizations, and other non-government and civil society groups, and it focuses on those three major communicable diseases, AIDS, TB, and malaria. Of course, many other governments are very important in global health. There are other governments which are major providers of funding, which participate in all these international organizations. And I don't for a minute want to forget the governments that are also governing countries, even though they are not aid donors, that are accounting for much of the world's population, and of course, financing and carrying out much of the activities that improve global health around the world, the governments of all the developing countries. There are a lot of private organizations that are active in global health, including philanthropies. In the U.S., the best known of these may be the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is now the largest charity of its kind in the world. The Rockefeller Foundation, a much older organization which began financing global health issues in the early part of the 20th century, and the Clinton Global Initiative and other associated organizations which have been organized by former President Bill Clinton. A lot of academic and research institutes are involved in global health around the world and in the United States, including the one from which I'm speaking to you today, Harvard School of Public Health. And there are many non-governmental organizations in the United States and elsewhere that are active in global health, including organizations like the Red Cross, Save the Children, and many others, and we'll look at some examples of those in a couple of minutes. That's been a brief tour of who is active in global health in terms of organizations and institutions outside the United States, and how the United States participates in these institutions.